Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and today we're back in Africa with Meine Reise durch Afrika by Rita Berman. This is a book that as a channel we are coloring every page in. And y'all voted last week in the poll to do Ellie Says Hi. So we're going to be doing this page. It's number 64. If you have the chart here, I will put a link to the video in the description box where I discuss how I numbered my pages and a link to the Ko-fi shop where you can get that progress chart for free. So today I am going to be using Polychromos colored pencils and we will color this picture. So grab your pencils and let's go. Here is a list of all the pencils that I use in this color along. Hey my fellow doodlers, how are you today? Drop me a comment and let me know where you're coming from and what you're working on. Are you working on this project as a color along, or are you just listening to me chat away while you color in something else? Let me know. So today what I'm going to do is I really like the look of these rich jewel tones and these vibrant colors. They're not vibrant. I guess jewel tones best describes them. But I really like the look of the dark at the bottom and moving into the lighter. Now, you're going to see a lot of combinations, I dare say today, that you probably won't see, like on the color pencil charts. I just did some mixing and matching of colors, and with Polychromos, they layer beautifully and they really work nice when you do a lot of layers. And so that's kind of what I've done here. As I add each layer, I go back over the previous ones so it has a little bit of cohesion. So unlike maybe like a Prismacolor where you have one color and then you have a little piece that blends, I am actually going over the entire thing with the lightest color. With the exception of sometimes where I'm just adding in a pop of color. So I don't know if that even made sense to you all. But as you can see here, like I'm adding this middle red, and in the center, we're only going to have middle red and the next lightest color, but I am taking that red all the way back down to where I started with the dark indigo. And Polychromos are really great for this. Now, you don't always have to do that. It's definitely a choice. Sometimes you might want maybe not have this red down at the bottom, but I wanted to use the indigo and the mauve to just deepen up the red color. I didn't really want a gradient of blue purple to red orange. I simply want it to look more like a deepening of the red. So as I add this dark cadmium, you can see that orange really come out, and I like the look of the purple blend into an orange. I just think it's very attractive. Now I decided here I wanted to deepen up my shadows, so I go ahead and add black. Now understand that when you add black, most times this is going to dull your colors, and that can work to your advantage. And I really liked the look I got here. Now, at any point along the way, I could have stopped adding different colors and just used the same colors that I had used here and just added another layer. But you can see here that I went over even the orangey color. I want this to read more red. So the orange isn't going to be my final destination, so to speak. But I really like how Polychromos work this way. But by simply going back to the same colors that I used and adding more layers, you can see the color really develop, and we start to lose a lot of the white spots. Now, I choose at the end to go back over my design with a colorless blender, and that helps me remove any remaining white spots. But you have to have a significant number of layers in order for that to work well. In my experience, using just one layer, it doesn't produce as good a results as if you add more layers. So you can see me adding layers, and you can see the color becoming more rich and vibrant. I think too often new colorists often stop too soon. Whether you're using Prismacolor or whether you're using Polychromos or any other pencil, the more layers you add, the more I think you'll like the results. Now, don't get me wrong, you can always do too much and change the overall look that you're going for. But here I'm doing the exact same thing as I did the last time. I've got some black there at the bottom. This is a slightly different color blend, and it gives us similar but not exactly the same results. But the whole idea behind my coloring is the same. Going in underneath the rooftop here and making those shadowy areas dark, and using my darker colors on the bottom, blending out into the top, and then going back over it again with another layer to bring out, you know, the richness of the colors and to get rid of those white dots. I really like Polychromos on Rita Berman paper. I feel like they work really nicely. Personally, I can make most pencils work on almost any paper. I just change my technique. That being said, there are definitely pencils that are a preferred choice on certain papers. And if you're someone that likes to color a specific way, for example, if you really like a layering technique, you're always going to be drawn to pencils like Polychromos versus something like a Prismacolor. I actually absolutely adore my Prismacolors, but not as much for their softness or their blendability so much as their palette. Even working today, I felt like I really missed having some of my go-to colors when I colored the ground. I felt like I really love the French grays that you get in Prismacolors, and some of the warmer tones, some of the brown tones that I just feel like Polychromos doesn't have the colors that I enjoy as much. Now, Polychromos has other colors that I like better in different areas. So there probably isn't a perfect palette. And if you're someone that colors just for yourself, if I was just coloring this on my own and not as a color along, a lot of times I would mix the different brands. I try not to do that to you guys, but let me know in the comments, because would you prefer that I do something and get maybe a little, in my eyes, better result if I pulled in colors from a different brand, or would that frustrate you? I feel like my go-to would be that might be frustrating, and that's why I don't do it. But I'm open. I'm definitely open, and I've seen other colorists that do that. The exception I usually make is a Prismacolor white because it's easy for most people, unless you're in the UK, I guess. And then you just simply use the white that you have. I don't think that that really influences much. But anyway, I'm blathering on about nothing. So let me know though if that bothers you. What is your question, Wendy? I guess my question is, would you want to see a color along where brands were mixed? Yes or no? That would be my question. Okay, so back to the coloring. So once again, this whole color along is just random blends of things that I'm like, okay, I want this to be kind of a golden ochre kind of color, but I want to bring in the orange that I put in to the building on the left, because whenever you add a lot of colors like this page has, I think it's important to try and add something that ties them all together. And so what you're going to see is that I use a lot of the same colors, even though I use quite a few. For example, all the green that you see, not the turquoise, but if you see an actual green, that is made from a yellow and a turquoise, because I did not want to introduce another green. So I used a blend to get my choice. Now, I could have done that with the orange as well, but I felt like because I've got a red and I've got a yellow and I got the orange, we've got kind of an analogous color palette going on this page, and then more of a pop of color with our turquoises and blues. So honestly, I couldn't tell you without deep diving, because I don't go to the color wheel and say, okay, I want a split complementary color palette, blah, blah, blah. I just simply do what I like. And hopefully it works. But I am consciously aware of when I bring in colors, and I do try to use the same colors. Even though this is yellow, it's yellow with the orange, and the building on the right or on the left is red with the orange, and the building in the middle is some of the same reds as the building on the left. It's just a little pinker. So anyway, I'm just trying to tell you kind of my thought process. So once again, as I build a purple building, I'm using the same purple that I used in the red building on the left. Are you starting to kind of see a pattern here? But I feel like then when I'm done, it feels more cohesive to me than if I were to just color the building on the left a red and the building on the right a purple. I've tried to create those colors as a blend so that they unify a little bit better. So I hope that makes sense. Now this video is 2 hours, and it is hard to have a one-sided conversation for 2 hours. So if you're new to the channel, a couple of things to point out. In the upper left-hand corner, there's always a little talking head girl when I'm chatting. When I'm not chatting, if I decide to put something to music, like for example, if I was coloring the blue in the sky, I might put it to music, because what can you say about that, right? Then the little talking head girl goes away, and then you can decide what you want to do, because I know sometimes I watch videos and I don't like the music they chose. And so it's nice to be able to mute, but I want you to not miss if I am telling you why I do something or whatever. The other thing I do on this channel is I like learning. And since I can't talk about my exciting life for 2 hours because I don't have that exciting of a life, then what I do is I try and pull in facts about the page that we're doing. So, for example, in a past page, there was a camel on the page. So I chatted about camels and some of the interesting things about how they have multiple eyelids and eyelashes in order to keep the sand out and things like that. So we will be talking about South Africa today along the way. So what else? So my son that lives here in Colorado just had to have an emergency appendectomy last weekend. So that was a little scary. He had been in it started out like the day before. He just wasn't feeling good. And we had went to breakfast to celebrate his birthday, which was a few days later. And he didn't even eat, which my son's always been a big eater. So for him to go to breakfast and have this amazing breakfast and not eat it was like, okay, I'm a little worried. But then the next day he woke up in an extreme amount of pain, and they ended up taking him by ambulance, and he had to have his appendix taken out. And the doctor was actually really interested in his appendix because he said it was one of the longest he had ever seen, and that it curled around much like the snake that eats itself. Have you seen that icon or whatever? It has a name, and I can't remember what it is. But ironically, he actually has a tattoo of that snake from when he was in the Marine Corps. Like on his arm, like on his biceps. So the doctor found that really interesting. And I don't know, I guess he's going to submit pictures of it to all of his other nerdy friends so that they can chat about it. So, but the good news is he's home and recovering well. And while he was in there, when he was born, he had the belly button hernia, and it healed itself. And so he always had an outie. And while he was in there, the doctor said, well, I can fix that for you, and made him an innie. So anyway, this is as exciting as my life gets, guys. I wish that it wouldn't have been at the expense of my son, but I am happy that he's healing up and doing well. So, what else is new? Ellie's still sassy. She's turned into such a good dog, though. When I first got her as a puppy, I thought I would lose my mind. She was so high energy, and because she was so high energy, it was a little difficult to teach her things because I was just starting a little too young, because the dog I had prior to that at a very young age learned very well. He was a much calmer dog. But as she's grown, she's settled down, and she actually listens better than my previous dog. And she is just so smart and just a blessing in my life. But my husband was on vacation last week. He went fishing with his buddies and decided to leave her home with me. And so the spare human, as I jokingly call myself, got all of her love, and she decided, hey, this bear wasn't so bad after all. I mean, don't get me wrong. She loves me and she hangs out with me. But, he's kind of Disneyland dad and takes her to all the fun things. And she loves to be outdoors. And my husband's more of an outdoorsy guy than I am. And so she naturally loves that. So I get it. I do. but it's a joke around my house that I'm the spare human. So with this yellow on the page, you can kind of see where I've tied in the orange on the building on the top left. And now in this one, I don't, if I remember right, I don't bring out all the oranges. Oh, yes, maybe I do. Wendy, should you scroll ahead and see what's coming before you talk? Yes, I should. Did I? No, I didn't. So, we'll probably put a blooper reel in here, I'm sure. But anyway, let's talk about South Africa for a moment, shall we? So I am getting these facts from facts.net. And it says, South Africa, also called the Rainbow Nation, features a diverse mix of people from different cultures. It leads the world in supplying precious medicines, and aside from its rich natural resources, South Africa boasts beautiful landscapes teeming with native species. So then there's 50 facts on this page. Now, we'll see if we get to all of them. Let me see. Okay. So South Africa uniquely has 3 different capital cities. So on here, I just wanted to lighten up that area just a little bit, so I just erased a little. I just felt like I had brought out the dark a little too far down, so that was all I was doing, just making an adjustment. So unlike most countries that have just one capital city, South Africa has 3. So Parliament as it is at Cape Town and can be moved with an act of Parliament. Unofficially, the nation's 3 capitals each have the seat of one of the 3 branches of government. For one, Cape Town has Parliament, making it the seat of South Africa's legislative branch, while the President and the Cabinet both work from Pretoria, making it the seat of South Africa's executive branch. And finally, the Supreme Court of Appeals stays at Bloemfontein. I hope I'm saying that right, making it the seat of South Africa's judicial branch. So that's kind of interesting. Now, what I will say back to our picture here is I'm trying to balance the bold, rich colors with the roofs. So I'm making the roofs different than the actual building, but I'm bringing them in from other buildings. So this is kind of the colors that I used in the building to the left of this one that I'm coloring right now. Then maybe on the red building, it'll have a purple roof or vice versa. So that's kind of my thoughts as I go along. So you're going to see similar color combinations for the roofs that you did for the buildings. Now, I can't guarantee that they're going to be the same because I didn't write them down at this point. I just kind of say this is what I'm looking for, and I do it. So they may be a little different, but I do try and keep with the same pencils. Okay, next fact. Mount Mafati stands as South Africa's tallest mountain, which is 3.45 kilometers high. Okay, so I went and I had to Google because, as it's been pointed out by a lot of my subscribers, us in the United States are the ones that have to do everything different. So I converted it to feet, which is 1,131 feet high, which actually makes me giggle a little because I live at 5,000 something, probably 5,100 and some feet high. So when I think of a tall mountain being 1,130 feet high, it does make me giggle just a little. But anyway, it isn't actually the tallest mountain in the region. That honor goes to Thebana Netliana in Lesotho, towering at a whopping 3.48 kilometers high, which is probably like 1,135 feet. I know, it just makes me giggle. So most of South Africa is actually a big plateau. It's called the Central Plateau, and the formation averages an altitude of between 1 and 2.1 kilometers above sea level. So to me, that's pretty much sea level. So that's interesting. But there are steep cliffs on the South African plateau, and it goes past the borders of South Africa and extends into Zimbabwe and Mozambique. Oh, I have no idea. I'm sorry if I'm slaughtering your lovely language. So, and the pictures are very beautiful. They actually remind me of a glance of where I live. Just the greenery and just, I don't know. It just does remind me of that. I wish I could pop pictures up, but I'm pretty sure they'd be copyrighted and I don't want to have problems. So mostly to the northwest, it is hot and dry, but as you go to the east, it gets a little cooler and wetter. And then in the south and the southwest, mountains actually dominate. So, and then it goes into a coastal region. So there really is a broad expanse of landscape there and a varied climate. So they get 464 millimeters of rain. So let's Google that. 464 millimeters to inches is 18.26 inches of rain. To the west, the country has a patch of desert by Nambia, and the south of the country has Mediterranean weather and some snow, enough to accommodate skiing. So it's a big variety. There are lots of animals that live in South Africa. Throughout the country, African leopards, blue wildebeest, lions, South African cheetahs, South African giraffes, South African white rhinos are its distinct species. Some of them only live in South Africa, such as the critically endangered riverine rabbit. So I think we talked about this on a previous video, that Africa has an extremely diverse animals and plants that are only found in those areas. It says South Africa has a rich fungal ecosystem. With 200,000 species of fungus, it has more fungal species than plant species. Ironically, South Africa's existing ecological program does not include fungal species among its list of protected life forms. That's a lot of different fungus. So over 22,000 species of plants live there, accounting for 9% of all plant species on Earth. Especially on the plateau, grasses make up a large part of the plant life, but there's also small shrubs, acacia trees, and baobab trees, which is pretty amazing. And looking at it, it almost has like kind of a Arizona, New Mexico vibe to it. Water availability is naturally a major concern. South Africa has few rivers, all of which only have small amounts of water. In fact, all of South Africa's water combined only reaches 1/6 of the Nile's total volume. While South Africa gets enough rain every year, most of it gets wasted in the annual floods. This has led South Africa to build large dams to concentrate as much water as they can to reduce waste. South Africa also considers large-scale desalination of ocean water in the future to fight water shortages. Definitely one of the more promising South African facts. Now, back on the page, this particular one, it's kind of interesting how I came up with this color combination. I was testing out combinations and I just felt like it was a little too bright in my combination. And so I erased it and I really liked the muted look. So then I tried to duplicate that. And I don't know if I do it here, but I think a little bit of the pink, what? Just one second. I'll tell you the color. Coral. I feel like adding a touch. Oh yeah, I do. I really like the look of adding that coral to the pages. I just feel like it adds that little extra something. And I like how it kind of toned back that big distinction in that building in the back. The yellow was just popping out a little bit too much for me. And I like how it tempers it down without making huge changes to it, right? It kind of helps blend it a little bit. And because they all have a little bit, once again, it kind of ties them all together and doesn't make the buildings look completely different. But now here comes the difficult part, is I'm looking at this page and there are so many bits and bobs. And what do, right? And I decided that I really didn't want to add green to this page. I wanted to keep it with the turquoise because I knew I wanted to add turquoise to this page. I feel like turquoise just really is a nice complement. And so I compromised on the green by working in blues and turquoises and a light sky blue that I will incorporate into the sky as well. But I really like how the cactuses turned out. It's not your traditional cactus color, but y'all, this is our book, and I'm the boss of my coloring book. I heard that as a line from Dee Dee Williamson, and it just made me giggle because I'm like, fair. We are the boss of our own coloring book. So it's something that I've always tried to keep in my brain as I color, and I make these kind of stylistic choices because even as I was thinking about these colors, I was like, but cactus isn't turquoise, Wendy. And I'm like, okay, but who cares? But who really cares? Are there coloring police? I don't think so. Nobody's ever come and arrested me yet. So I'm going to take my chances. And I thought that this light blue would be a nice complement to the dark indigo. So that's kind of my story of why I chose this color. Okay. Where are we at here? South Africa only has a small agricultural sector, with only 10% of the country's labor pool work in the agricultural sector. because only 13% of the country's land can support crops, with a mere 3% producing high yields. But that being said, South Africa still produces 19.3 million tons of sugarcane per year as the main crop grown in the country. So that's interesting. Mining makes up the most important part of South Africa's economy. Up to 77% of all the world's platinum comes from South Africa, along with 45% of the world's chromium. Other exported raw materials include 39% of the world's palladium and 38% of the world's vanadium. I have never heard of those two things. Let me know in the chat if you have. South Africa is also the third largest exporter of coal on Earth. Although the colonizers found diamonds as South Africa's first natural resource, only 1% of the world's supply comes from the country. So that's really interesting, because I guess it must be a different part of Africa that the diamonds come from. Because when we talk about the slave diamond trade, I'm not well versed, so I shouldn't even talk about things I don't know. Manufacturing makes up a small part of South Africa's economy. I already talked about that. Most of these vehicles go to Japan. Oh no, back up. Only 13% of South Africa's labor pool work in manufacturing, which accounts for 15% of the country's GDP. Automobiles make the most common manufactured product, with about 535,000 vehicles produced in a single year. Most of these vehicles go to Japan at 29% of its exports. South Africa also produces over $2 billion worth of machine parts every year, and car companies that operate in South Africa include BMW, Ford, Nissan, and Toyota, among others. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. South Africa has primarily solid telecommunications industry, with 5 different providers offering services to 20 million subscribers. This gives the country the 4th most advanced communications network in the whole world. Wow, that's very interesting. Tourism plays a major part in South Africa's economy, with, in 2017, 3.5 million tourists visited South Africa in a single year. As a whole, it brings in $7 billion every year and employs 10.3% of South Africa's labor force. Most tourists come to South Africa to see the country's rich wildlife, while others visit its savannas for game hunting. So that's kind of interesting to think about, is that tourism is literally as strong as their manufacturing and agricultural sector. South Africa has provided many firsts in science and technology. Groote Schuur Hospital made history in 1967 with the world's first heart transplant done by cardiac surgeon Christian Barnard. Prior to that, Max Theiler developed the world's first vaccine against yellow fever in 1937. Alan Cormack developed CT scanning in 1979, which earned him a Nobel Prize in medicine. Honestly, you guys, am I just not well educated? I had no idea that South Africa was leading the way. I mean, those are some pretty big deals. Heart transplant, CT scanner, the vaccine. Like, that's kind of crazy to think about. Maybe I'm just an idiot. Go ahead. You can say it in the comments. I get it. Most of these, South Africa has no less than 11 official languages. Most of these languages belong to the country's native peoples, with Zulu most commonly spoken. Other native languages, I'm not even going to try them, y'all. There's 11 different ones with names that start with like X. So I'm only willing to embarrass myself so much for you all. Some of the world's oldest art pieces come from South Afrika. So before I get into that, I am using the same colors in just a slightly different way and adding in the yellow on the tips just for visual interest and, just a little difference from the cactus, but essentially the same colors. Now, I will go back and do another layer, so if you're wanting to do it all as you go, feel free to do 2 layers of what we're doing right now. Exactly the same. So I just wanted to chime in and say that. Okay, back to our oldest art pieces. So prehistoric art from South Afrika goes back as far as 75,000 years ago, mainly in the form of cave inscriptions. So there was a lot of cave art, and I find that extremely interesting. Okay, Cape Dutch and Cape Malay are the 2 distinctive features of South African cuisine. Both result from a mix of influences that include not just European cuisines, but also the cooking styles that Asians brought with them from the East. Cape Dutch cuisine in particular makes extensive use of spices such as nutmeg and allspice, among others. In contrast, Cape Malay features spicy curries, including a wide variety of fish dishes. I would love to try some South African cooking. Okay, so South Afrika has its own unique version of beer. It says the natives made it long before the Europeans arrived, with beer having an important place in the native societies. Special occasions like weddings had beer as the traditional drink, also offered as a special gift for certain events. Later on, Europeans studying possible solutions to malnutrition found native South African beer as one solution. The local grains used to make South African beer apparently give it more vitamins than other kind of beer, making it useful to fight malnutrition. So y'all, now you have an excuse if you want to drink beer. You're just fighting malnutrition. Okay, y'all, so I was trying to find out some more facts because that article ended, and I don't know if I misread it or what, but it's not, I think it was a typo, because the highest mountain is Madafi Peak, and it's 3,450 meters or 11,312 feet high, which makes much more sense. So I take back all my giggles. It's still not as tall as the mountains in Colorado, but still, I was just chuckling to myself. There are places in the United States that are relatively flat, and it wouldn't be unheard of for them to call a mountain something that we might call a hill. But anyway, I wanted to clear that up because for those of you that know, were probably screaming at me. So, the one fact that I did find that was kind of interesting is that all the South African rivers and tributaries, if put end to end, their combined length would measure over 101,000 miles, which is 4 times the circumference of our planet. So that's pretty crazy to think about, isn't it? Now, as I'm doing these little bits and bobs, I'm trying to tie in the same colors that I used for the cactus and the leaves and in other areas of, the picture. And this is an example of what I was talking about earlier with not actually adding in a more vibrant green, like a spring green or something like that, is simply using the yellow and the blue or the turquoise to create my green. I will tell you, I apologize, because in looking at this, I don't think I put that number 65 you see there. It's a turquoise, maybe cobalt turquoise. I don't think that was on the list of pencils that I used, so I do apologize. I tried to keep track of it, but when I had pulled out all of my pencils that I thought I might use, there was definitely some that I didn't end up using. So I thought I had caught them all, but I probably didn't, so apologies. So what I thought I would do now, because we're only 45 minutes into our 2-hour journey, is maybe talk about one of the largest city, Johannesburg. So it is the largest city in South Africa and the world's largest city not built on a coastline, lake, or river. It was founded in 1886 after gold was discovered in the area. Let's see. It is known for having the world's largest man-made forest with over 10 million trees. There's a big airport there. It has a 54-hectare zoo with 2,700 animals representing 380 species. So I would be curious how that compares to like the San Diego Zoo here in the United States. But that being said, it's there's definitely, that's a big zoo. So what are some of the other little things it has to say? Its international airport is the biggest and busiest in Africa. It was established in 1952 and known as Jan Smuts Airport. It serves as the primary airport for all domestic and international flights to and from the country. It's also one of the few airports worldwide that offer direct flights in all 6 continents and serves as a gateway to many sub-Saharan countries. The number of people who pass through this airport is estimated to be an impressive 28 million. I wish they gave us a little more details. Is that ever? Is that yearly? Is it what? I don't know. It's also known as the City of Gold. This came from the city's Zulu name, Igoli, which translates to City of Gold. It was founded following the discovery of gold in 1886, and that started the big gold mining crave. Gold is a cornerstone for the city's rapid growth. You'll find the world's deepest mine in Johannesburg. It's the most extensive mine supply in the continent, and Maponyang gold mine is also the world's deepest mine with a mining shaft of 2,800 meters or 3,400 meters below the surface. That's pretty wild. To get to the bottom of the mine takes about an hour. Y'all, who's brave enough to go 1 hour deep into the Earth's surface? Not me. I'm going to just say that right now. Not me. I come from a miner's family. Coal mining was a big industry in Wyoming when I was growing up, and all 3 of my uncles were coal miners. And so pretty well versed in some of the mining things, but that is crazy to me to go that deep. The Hillbrow Tower is considered the tallest structure in South Africa, standing at 269 meters high, and the Leonardo in Santon, which is 234 meters high. So the Hillborough Tower used to have a revolving restaurant at the top, but it was closed in 1981 primarily due to safety reasons. So those of us that are meter illiterate, that equates to 767 feet in the air. That's crazy tall. So once again, with this lady's headdress, I'm using the same colors that I used essentially in the buildings, but in different combinations. This one has much more orange and less of the other colors, but it's essentially the same combinations. So while we're talking about buildings, because my brain doesn't necessarily keep random facts about, well, how tall is the tallest building in the United States? So the tallest building in the United States is One World Trade Center. But what I thought was really interesting is I just recently saw an article about a building that they're trying to build in Oklahoma, and it's going to be 1,907 feet tall, which would be about 200 feet taller than the One World Trade Center in New York. But ironically, it's going to be in Oklahoma. So for those of you that don't live in the United States, Oklahoma is not really renowned for much. No offense to any of y'all that live in Oklahoma, but this is not a state like New York or California or Wyoming with Yellowstone, or it doesn't really have a big tourist draw. So I don't know if that's the point, because it looks like a really cool complex, and it's got like a lot of entertainment and dining and that kind of stuff on the bottom, and then there's like one piece of it that like shoots up into the air. So I don't know why they picked Oklahoma as opposed to a bigger city. I'm not mad about it. I kind of like the idea. I think it would probably bring some touristy people to Oklahoma that live nearby. We toured Oklahoma a couple of years ago on vacation, and it has some unique features, but it's not a big city place, So, Johannesburg is an economic hub which employs 12% of the national workforce. The economy boomed in 2008, and Johannesburg generates 16% of South Africa's total gross domestic product. And the Johannesburg Securities Exchange is the only stock exchange in the country and is included in the top 20 world exchanges in terms of market capitalization. So, Joburg is the home of South Africa's biggest hospital. It ranks third largest in the world. It has 429 buildings that occupy 170 acres and houses 3,400 beds. The office is staffed with almost 7,000 doctors and personnel and has a capacity of about 3.5 million people. It's also a teaching hospital for the University of Witwatersrand Medical School. Johannesburg has been rebuilt 4 times. It looks like a beautiful city. It has been rebuilt 4 times in the span of 1 century. It started out as a tented camp, then it was transformed into a tin shanty town. Then the city was overcome by 4-story Edwardian brick buildings and finally became a modern-day city with towering skyscrapers. These transformations were brought about by a rapid increase in population, economic growth, and changes in political climates. As Joburg now focused on commerce and entrepreneurship, the city has evolved to accommodate businesses. It is one of the richest archaeological sites in the world. The cradle of humankind is located in Johannesburg. It contains the largest concentration of human ancestral remains in the whole world, estimated to be around 40%. In 1999, the site was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Okay. Joburg is the home of Kwaito music, a catchy genre of music that became a phenomenon in the 90s, originated in Johannesburg. The music became popular as it embodies post-apartheid township culture. Johannesburg continues to put great value into rich cultural and history, as well as art, theater, and music. The biggest man-made urban forest is found in Joburg. There are over 10 million trees in Johannesburg. Since the land is originally a grassland, most of these trees weren't there to begin with. They were planted to combat the greenhouse effect brought by mining, and even now, more trees are being planted yearly. Another benefit brought out by this urban forest is the decrease in noise levels in the city. And it's interesting because the picture shows where they've structurally, like, if you were looking at a map and you would see where roads are, it's like they've planted trees in roads. If that makes any sense, I would encourage you to maybe Google a picture of it. I wish I could flash pictures, but I really don't want to get any sort of copyright infringement. Okay. Johannesburg is rated as a first-class city with infrastructures that match those of first-world cities. More than 8,000 kilometers of sewage and water pipes are laid out in the city. The streets are furnished with more than 180,000 streetlights and 1,700 traffic lights. On top of that, there are over 100 water towers and reservoirs in Joburg. Public facilities such as community health clinics, cemeteries, swimming pools, and other recreational spaces are prevalent in the city. Joburg is one of the youngest cities in the world. It is only 136 years old. It holds the largest stadium in Africa with a capacity of 94,736 people. It's the largest stadium in the whole continent. And it was built in 2009 for the 2010 FIFA Cup. It has also held many sports events as well as concerts like Guns N' Roses, Foo Fighters, Rihanna, and more. I wonder if Taylor Swift is played there. Johannesburg is considered the world's largest dry port. It is the largest city not built on a coastline, river, or lake, earning its nickname of dry port. So it looks like it was developed by South African Railways to accommodate 50% of the cargo from Durban and Cape Town ports. So that was kind of interesting. So now I thought we would learn some fun facts about Botswana. Here's what I'll tell you about Botswana. Back when I was probably as early as high school, maybe just getting out of high school, I had an obsession with going with Botswana. I wanted to go visit there. I just thought it seemed like the most interesting place ever. Sadly, I've never been there. But I think we should check it out. All right, grab your passport. We're headed to Botswana. Okay, it is a landlocked country in South Africa. It is a parliamentary republic. The capital is Gaborone. The population is 2,249,104. The official language is English. Setswana is the most commonly spoken language. Money they use is pula, and it's about 224,000 square miles, roughly. So it is there. The massive Kalahari Desert covers more than 70% of Botswana, and it touches 9 African countries. The Kalahari isn't a true desert because it gets more rainfall each year than most deserts receive. So maybe we'll go there next. Because drought is a problem in Botswana, rain is really precious, and when the rain comes, it's sporadic and often causes flooding. I was just looking to see if I was doing anything worth chatting about. I think a lot of the coloring on this is pretty straightforward. I think what makes it unique is maybe the combination of colors that I use, but as far as the actual coloring, I think it's pretty straightforward. All right, so most of the country is covered by grassland called savanna, and the most common tree is the baobab tree. I think I'm saying that right. And some of the baobabs are over 2,000 years old. That's crazy. Elephants at Chobe are the largest in body size of all living elephants. They number more than 50,000. Meerkats are also common in the country, as well as cheetahs and lions, but those continue to decrease due to factors including hunting and farmers protecting their livestock. About 17% of Botswana has been set aside for game reserves and national parks. Tourists come from all over the globe to visit Botswana for safaris and a chance to see wildebeests, giraffes, jackals, hyenas, lions, cheetahs, and more. Also, bird watchers are big there, and there are greater and lesser flamingos. Now, just so you know, I'm getting this from kids.nationalgeographic.com. Botswana. Most of the people in Botswana are Tswana and are said to be descended from King Mogale, who lived during the 14th century. The Tswana now live primarily in large cities and towns, but many still live in villages and take care of livestock and grow food. The next two largest ethnic groups are the Bushmen and the Kalanga. Only about 1% of the population is white, from Europe or the United States. Children go to primary school for 7 years and then on to secondary school for 5 years. They learn English in the 5th year of primary school onward, but not many people become fluent. The native language, Setswana, is also one of the South Africa's official language. AIDS is an epidemic in Botswana, and 1 of every 3 people is infected with the virus. Oh my God, that is devastating to hear that. I mean, I grew up when AIDS was probably the most talked about, like COVID is now, or was a couple years ago. AIDS was like that when I was growing up, but I really didn't realize that it was still that prevalent. So that's very sad. Botswana has been a stable democracy since it became independent in 1966, and every 5 years the people elect the members of the National Assembly, and the Assembly elects the president. Well, that's interesting. The president can remain in office for 10 years. In 2004, Botswana was named the least corrupt country in Africa by the World Economic Forum. That's notable. I wish we had that. Okay, setting politics aside. Okay, so we're moving on. Here I'm just adding a little bit of color to part of that blanket just to add a little depth and dimension, and then the pop of purple. Okay, so I moved to, it's called Far and Wild Travel, or farandwild.travel. Facts about Botswana. It's definitely a safari destination. It has the largest populations of elephants in Africa, with numbers thought to be in excess of 140,000. It is home to roughly a third of Africa's overall elephant population. Since a hunting ban was put in place in 2014, elephant numbers in Botswana have been gradually increasing, and with conservation efforts gaining praise from preservationists around the world. Although hunting has been recently reintroduced, it's still finding a place in Botswana continues to be an elephant population stronghold and almost a talisman for the rest of Africa to follow suit. It talks about deciding where to camp, different camps, and whatever. I just always thought it would be neat to do a safari. To see those kind of animals in the wild would be so amazing. But, you know, it's not for everyone. National parks and reserves make up 40% of Botswana. Many people go on safari to get away from the crowds and experience nature in its truest form. It provides this more than any other country in Africa. It does, however, result in many of the camps being unobtainable due to the cost of the exclusivity. Botswana works on a high-cost, low-volume tourism model that allows executive wildlife experiences in extremely remote and game-rich areas. Unlike several other safari destinations, the remoteness of camp means many of them are only accessible by a small plane charter, although this increases the cost of the trip and certainly adds to the adventure. Probably why I haven't done it. You know, money's always a factor, isn't it? All right, home to the world's largest salt pans. The Makgadikgadi salt pans are a place I hold very close to my heart, he said. He spent 3 years guiding there with some Bushmen that have made the area home for thousands of years. And what makes it so special is its diversity. The large number of plains game, but it's home to more elusive species such as the aardwolf, the brown hyena, and meerkats. During the wetter months, which is December through March, the rains completely change the habitat, and lush grasses absorb nutrients around the pans, inviting Africa's second largest zebra migration to head west from the Boteti River. Oh, here I'm just showing where I didn't record like a little piece of it, so I apologize. There are 3 camps that stand out. Okay, back up one day. Africa's second largest zebra migration head west from the Boteti River and graze with predators such as cheetah and lions following. From a birder's point of view, these winter months are also a great time to see the flamingos, with both the lesser and greater flamingos migrating to pans to feed, mate, and lay their eggs. So when we get to the flamingo page, we will learn more about flamingos. Botswana is also home to the world's largest inland delta. It's the largest inland delta in the world, and combined with the pristine, untouched wildlife, also referred as the closest thing to Eden on this planet. It may be due to its size that it's one of the most wildlife-rich parts of Africa, with one of the highest densities of elephants and carnivores, making it a must-visit area. So it talks about some different camps. So that's all we have about that. I really do wish this was a live where you could just ask me questions and we could have a two-way conversation here. I wanted to bring the richness of that red down into this pot with the pop of kind of the orange red in the center with the turquoise. I really love these colors together. I just think they're beautiful. So I'm just kind of going over them just for another layer, so to speak. And I'm going to make the same color choices in this pot as well. Okay, so I moved on to kids.kitty.co/Cape Town. It is the third most populous, let's talk about Cape Town, the third most populous city in South Africa after Johannesburg and Durban. It's the legislative capital. We talked about that. It's colloquially named the Mother City. Let's see. In 2014, Cape Town was named the best place in the world to visit by both New York Times and the Daily Telegraph. It was a host city to the 1995 Rugby World Cup and the 2010 FIFA World Cup. It is the oldest urban area in South Africa. It goes into all the history. It has a lot. So let's get into some more quirky details about it, shall we? So here's some things that maybe you didn't know. This is from CapeTownMagazine.com. Cape Town is South Africa's tobogganing hub. Fancy slipping and sliding downhill in a sled? The Mother City is the place to do it, with over 300 tobogganing tracks existing worldwide. Cape Town is home to the only one in Africa, aptly titled Cool Runnings, after the film about Jamaica's first bobsled team. It is 25 kilometers outside the city central. Fact number 2. 2 couples get hitched on Table Mountain every month. Our precious flat-top mountain began forming around 280 million years ago and today is still evolving. The cableway, on the other hand, was erected in 1929 and was originally constructed from wood and steel. Sounds dangerous to us, but there have been no accidents on it as of yet. Another fun fact, it's estimated that 2 couples get hitched every month. And did we mention that the Table Mountain National Park, which spans 22,000 hectares, boasts more plant species than the British Isles or New Zealand? So that's pretty crazy. We might have to look up what Table Mountain is. Cape Town was appointed the best place in the world to visit by New York Times in 2014. We talked about that earlier. The Castle of Good Hope once had a sea view. Cape Town's famous landmark, the Castle of Good Hope, is the oldest colonial building in South Africa, having been built between 1666 and 1679. The structure was once a fort welcoming as a welcoming port for sailors traveling around the Cape. Despite popular belief, it was not built by Jan van Riebeeck, but a temporary clay and wooden fort was built during his time at the now Golden Acre Shopping Center. Though the years have reshaped the castle's surrounding landscape, it's hard to imagine that at one time the star-shaped building had waves lapping at the entry point. Today, the castle exists as a ceremonial base for Cape regiments in the South African Defence Force. Lion's Head wasn't actually named for its felines. Despite speculations, Lion's Head does not take its name from being host to some big cats. The story goes that during the 17th century, Dutch settlers named the peak Leeuwen Kop, which stands for Lion's Head, and its adjacent summit, Lion's Tail. It was thought that the space between the two peaks is suggestive of a crouching lion. The mother city is host to the mother of all queer parties. Cape Town is host to the largest dress-to-theme costume party in South Africa, the Mother Queen Queer Project, MCQP, which happens to be one of the biggest lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer annual events on the African continent. Afrikaans is the most widely spoken language in the Western Cape. Despite being one of the youngest languages in the world, Afrikaans is the most widely spoken tongue in the Western Cape, ISIXHOSA, and English racking up second and third places. Another fun fact about the local demography, according to 2011 population census, the Western Cape populace has a slightly feminine edge, with 50.9% of U.S. women, with 50.9% of us being women. Girl power, it says. Cape Floral Kingdom claims nearly 7,000 plants found nowhere else on the world. I think we talked about this in an earlier video, but that's crazy. The Cape Peninsula was originally known as the Cape of Storms, as a result of the terrible tempests that had been known to rock the mother city's coastline. The Cape Peninsula was originally nicknamed Cape of Storms by legendary explorer Bartholomew Diaz. Later, it became known as the Cape of Good Hope because it offered colonial powers the promise of a sea route to the east. Dr. Christian Barnard's groundbreaking surgery was bittersweet. While most are familiar with the fact that Dr. Christian Barnard performed the first ever heart transplant in 1967, not so many know that his patient passed away shortly after. Sadly, Mr. Louis Washkansky, the man who received the revolutionary cardiac surgery, lived only 18 days post-operation due to the onset of pneumonia. The original theater where the awe-inspiring act took place today is a museum aptly named Heart of Cape Town. In 2011, the National Census reports that almost half, or 43.2% of the Western Cape's population is below the age of 25. Well, that's crazy. It seems the city is a fountain of youth. If you find the location of this age-defying waterspout, let us know. That's kind of crazy. Cape Town has the country's highest number of homes valued at more than R20 million. Business Day recently reported that while Josie's home to most of South Africa's wealthiest, 48% live in the City of Gold, the mother city has more trophy homes valued at over R20 million. Furthermore, it seems the most sought-after spot of turf for those living in the lush is Camps Bay, where there are 155 properties valued at more than R20 million. Cape Town is the most equal city in South Africa. Although the ANC and the DA might never come to consensus over who will most effectively run the Western Cape, both the UN Habitats, the United Nations Agency for Human Settlement, in 2010 and 2012, The World Cities reports concluded that Cape Town is the most equal of all South African cities. According to the account, which looks at income inequality, the 3 cities topping the inequality list are Buffalo City, Johannesburg, and East Rand. Oh my gosh, I hope I am not boring you to tears. We're an hour and 20 minutes in. I feel like the history teacher that you were like, just shut up. I hope not. Now, my white is a Prisma white, and I don't use it on much, but I do add just a little bit on the blanket down below and on this bow, just to change the color up a little. Okay, so we're going to get into her skin a little bit. Honestly, whenever I color a picture like this, it's such a small little detail that I don't really do a lot. So I basically go in with the beige red, and then I add just a little shading with the cinnamon, and I call it a wrap. If you want to do more, you could definitely, add more shading and a deeper color, or you could even make her skin color probably more native to the area, but I didn't. So as we move along, I'm literally looking around the picture and saying, what would look good here? What color can I bring in from somewhere else? And just, there really isn't that big of a rhyme or reason for what I'm doing, other than duplicating colors that I've been using. Here's where I do that second layer of the leaf. And I don't know why I think I just do the yellow, but then I do go back over it with a blending colorless blender at the end, and it will kind of bring out the vibrancy of those blues. But you could definitely do another layer. But a lot like I've done the other things, I'm going to use the same basic colors, the blues, this chrome oxide green fiery. Who named the Polychromos, by the way? Chrome oxide green fiery? What? Like, who thought that was a good idea? But anyway, it's essentially the same colors. So I am going to dive back in. We're going to talk about Durban, because why not? We're back to facts.net. And I'm going to add a little bit of the blue, and I'm going to bring in danthridine. What is it? A danthridine? I don't have the pencil in front of me. The hard to pronounce blue. I'm going to bring that into this little flower. But anyway, okay. So Durban is located on the eastern coast of South Africa, and it has stunning beaches, rich cultural heritage, and thriving economy. It is a warm climate. It has a lot of coastline and a lot of attractions. So it's very much a touristy area. So they're going to tell us 39 fun facts. It is the 3rd largest city in South Africa, and it has the Moses Mobhida Stadium. Yeah. It has a warm climate, rich history, and diverse activities. It is a paradise for surfers, food enthusiasts, nature lovers, and it is a must-visit destination in South Africa. There's a lot of words I can't pronounce. Okay, the Golden Mile Now that is a name I can pronounce. The Golden Mile is a popular beachfront promenade, and it has a famous stretch of beachfront on the Indian Ocean, which is lined with hotels, restaurants, and entertainment venues. The Durban Botanical Gardens is Africa's oldest surviving botanical garden, and it's been around since 1849. It is a melting pot of cultures with influences such as Zulu, Indian, British, and Afrikaans, among others. It is known for its vibrant street markets, such as Victoria Street Market, where visitors can find a variety of spices, crafts, and clothing. I really like how that pot turned out. I just thought I'd interject that. Durban is home to the largest port in Africa. It's kind of repeating the same facts. Durban's beaches are a surfer's paradise. There's a lot of whale watching. Between May and November, visitors can witness the annual migration of the humpback whales. South Africa's largest marine theme park is located in Durban. It's called Ushaka Marine World, and it offers unique combination of water rides, aquariums, and live shows and entertainment for all ages. The iconic rickshaw pullers are a symbol of Durban, they dress in colorful attire and offer rides along the beachfront. Durban is home to the Valley of 1,000 Hills, which is a picturesque area offering breathtaking views of rolling hills and traditional Zulu culture. Durban July is South Africa's premier horse racing event, bringing in horse enthusiasts from around the world. The Drakensberg Mountains, which is UNESCO World Heritage Site, are easily accessible from Durban and offer stunning landscapes and hiking trails. It is known for its thriving Indian cuisine. It has a vibrant music and art scene with various musical festivals, art exhibitions, and cultural events throughout the year. Okay, the Durban International Film Festival is one of Africa's largest film festivals, which showcases an array of local and international films, attracting film enthusiasts from around the world. It is a prime spot for deep-sea fishing. The Sharks rugby team is based in Durban, and it competes in South Africa's top rugby competitions. Durban has a vibrant nightlife scene, which has a wide range of bars, clubs, and live music venues catering to different tastes and preferences. Durban is the home to Durban Natural Science Museum. The Durban Botanical Gardens features an impressive collection of orchids. I like orchids. I've never had one, to grow one. Because, I can kill succulents. So I'm not going to attempt something like an orchid. Okay. They kind of repeat a lot of the same stuff. There's a bird park. They're like, well, if you're going to South Africa, don't forget to go to Durban's. Durban, not Durbans. Can we make up some names? Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. I thought about doing, I'm always tempted when I'm doing colored pencil color alongs. Like I started doing the black. And then I realized that my fine liners are like a perfect thing to do that with. So I stopped doing that. And I will go back at the end and add in some fine liners. And I think this color along is a good example of, there's probably quite a few places I could have used fine liners. I just have never used them that often, so I don't think about them. It's not that they wouldn't work or that I should or shouldn't do it. It's just I honestly never think to do it until I've already colored them. I am currently giving, if you look, there's a giveaway video on the channel now for 2,000 subscribers. We're well over 2,100 at this point. I'm a little slow in my getting this video up, but I do want you guys to, or I want to encourage you, even if you don't want to enter the drawing, just don't put doodle, but do let me know what you want to see on the channel, because I decide what to put on the channel based on what you guys are telling me you want to see. So I want the channel to be what y'all want to watch. So one of the things I did get is a request to use like markers more, and kind of a mixed media, pencils and markers. So we will be doing that. It's been on my list for a while, especially the Tombow markers. Alcohol markers, for me, do best on specialty paper. If you want to get good blends, especially if you're looking at a bigger picture, I feel like you need to have it on like Copic Express. Before I continue on my thought, I want to talk to you about what I'm doing on the page. The rest of my picture is very colorful. So I wanted this wall to be subtle neutral colors in order to balance out the picture so that it doesn't just become this overwhelming, like, you want your eye to have places to rest on your picture. That's why people use white in art. It gives the eye a place to rest. Well, neutral light colors like this will do that as well. So I am just randomly picking. Some of them I use warm gray 1, some of them I use warm gray 2. Now later on I'm going to add in a little bit of, I think, the pink tone, that coral, and this brown ochre probably. So when we get to it, I'll talk to you about it. But I want to say I started off extremely light here. Brown ochre is a very yellowish color, and I wanted to see, did I need more of a gray brown, or did I like the warmer tones of the brown ochre? So I'm going in pretty light. And that is the gift that Polychromos has. Now, I will tell you, see how my pencil strokes are looking a little wonky? It's because you want to turn your book to where it's completely easy for you to color. So you see, I kind of adopted a different style of holding the pencil, when really, if I wasn't filming, I would flip the book. And in the end, I choose to flip the book because my hand naturally goes a certain way, and it's easier for me to stay lighter when I can work farther away and at a certain direction. So keep that in mind when you're watching a color along. Do what's best for you comfortably. But I really want this to be light at this point. Okay, so what was I talking about before we started getting into the floor? Yeah, it's gone. I'm sure it'll come back to me. But I'm just adding the deeper tones of brown just in the shadowy areas, just like we did with the buildings. You don't want to take that dark color all the way up, right? You want the overall color to be the lighter tone. Well, that's what I'm doing here. So I'm just adding it in the shadowy areas and around the base of the objects. Oh, I think I was talking about the giveaway. Oh, I really like the idea of some mixed media. We'll see what I do with alcohol markers. I love my Copics. I really do. And I know a lot of people have the Ohuhus, and I probably would too if I hadn't bought them 10 or 12 years ago when Ohuhus weren't even on the market. Just simply because it took me a really long time to get the Copics because they were out of my price range. So I had to, 1 to 5 at a time until I got all of them. So there's that. And I really don't want to buy Ohuhu markers at this point because I already have Copics. I already have a lot of refills, and I don't use them a lot at this point, just simply because of what I said. I really feel like you're going to limit the benefits of your alcohol markers unless you're just using them for basing, which we can explore together, because the way that alcohol markers work best is when they aren't absorbed into the paper right away. If the Copic Express has a finish on it that allows the Copic to actually sit on top. And one of the things that I see a lot of people do is they put paper underneath their Copic page. So if they were coloring a page, they would put paper underneath in case it bleeds through. And I would encourage you to try putting something non-porous, something plastic, something like the cutting board or even a plastic bag, because you want your Copics or alcohol markers to have time to blend before they absorb and dry. Because as soon as they're absorbed into the paper, they dry and they don't blend anymore. That's why alcohol markers on something like Amazon paper, you're never going to get the kind of results that you see other, people use. When you see good color, Wendy, you're never going to get the kind of results you see from good alcohol marker users, because I would almost guarantee that they're using a different paper. Okay, that being said, you can use them to base the same as you can Tombows. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love my markers, but I would be interested in hearing from you guys if alcohol markers appeal to you, if you want more information, if you want tutorials, if you want me to show you how to use them on different paper. There's a good artist, Vanilla Arts, I think. She even has a YouTube channel where she talks about a lot of Copic stuff. And I have thought about taking her classes because I would like to learn more. But because I have a channel, I don't know if I could, in good faith, I would never copy someone's class. But how do I teach on my channel and not incorporate the things that I've learned throughout the years? And it's a quandary for me. So I haven't taken any of her classes for that reason. But I would encourage you to check her out if you're interested in that, because she has a depth of knowledge that I don't. And quite honestly, I feel like the subscribers I have on my channel are not looking for me to teach them advanced alcohol marker techniques. They are looking for the basics. They're looking for color combos. They're looking for community and that kind of stuff, because I am by no means a professional artist in any way, shape, or form, in terms of I have no advanced training. I am all self-taught. And by self-taught, I mean read books, watch YouTube videos, and experimentation. So anyway, not to get too far off on the tangent, I guess my question is, what are your thoughts? Are you wanting to see markers on the channel? I love the idea of mixed media, and I am looking at trying to create a course potentially that you would work at your pace and would be different than what I teach on the channel. So, I don't know. There's a lot to think about, guys. But right now, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing with you guys and sharing what little knowledge I have with you. And y'all know I have the best community on YouTube. I don't care if I don't have 250,000 subscribers. The 2,000 or 2,100 that I have are freaking amazing. And I will take you over the 250,000. Although if 250,000 people want to subscribe to me, I'm not opposed. But you have to be awesome. Okay, so my thought with this color is I'm not going to do a lot with this part of the sky. I try and keep it squared off as much as I can to where I don't go too wiggly wonky up at the top, but I am just basically layering a flat layer of this color in the sky. And then I debated a ridiculously amount of time trying to figure out what to do with the clouds. Do I do them blue? Do I do them colorful? Do I do them kind of pastel-y? What do I do? Well, since you guys have seen the finished picture, you know what I do. Basically, I incorporate some of the colors that I've used below in the clouds. I was kind of fearful that it might overwhelm the image, but I feel like it works. Now, to be fair, because I'm impatient, I didn't do probably enough layers of this top part of the sky. I could have done better. I could have done a couple of more layers and it would have looked more clean and finished. So, for those of you that are not as impatient as me, please do so. You will thank me. But me being me, didn't do enough layers. I decided, okay, I needed to do at least one more, so I did. But in reality, I probably could have done 2 to 3 more. And I'm sorry where I get off camera, but I'm really not doing anything more than I'm doing right here, just over on the other side. All right, you guys. So at this point, I'm thirsty. I'm hungry. So I'm going to stop this video here as far as my chatting. I'm going to set the rest to music, and you can finish it up with the clouds because there's nothing earth-shattering about how I do them. I just use yellow, orange, red, and red violet. I chose not to put any blue in it. And I tidy up a few of the final details. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really like how this page turned out. Please let me know if you would like to see more pages like this one as we move forward. Do you like this kind of color palette? Do you prefer more of the color palette that I used in my earlier videos? Do you want them all to be different? Just let me know your thoughts because we are a team moving forward. So I appreciate you all. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching another video from Jazzydoodledesigns. If you enjoy adult coloring content, please consider subscribing. You can now find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I welcome all comments and suggestions. Don't forget to like the video before you go. And until next time, take care.